But Paul D.E.H.N., who's dead now, I think he was terrific, just terrific. And he
For decades, Roddy McDowall was known as one of Hollywood's most versatile and beloved actors. A child star who grew into a respected character actor, a photographer, and a confidant to some of the biggest names in show business. But after his death in 1998, a discovery in his Los Angeles home would send shockwaves through the entertainment world. Hidden away in closets, drawers, and locked cabinets was an archive unlike any other. Thousands of photographs, reels of film, handwritten notes, and private letters that together formed a secret history of 1960s Hollywood. What McDowall had quietly collected over the years was not just a personal scrapbook, but a treasure trove of candid moments, whispered confessions, and behind-the-scenes stories that revealed the true lives of the stars who defined an era. The story of Roddy McDowall's hidden archive begins in the golden age of Hollywood, when the studio system still reigned and the public's appetite for celebrity gossip was insatiable. McDowall, who had first found fame as a child in How Green Was My Valley, and later as Cornelius in the Planet of the Apes films, was more than just an actor. He was a trusted friend to the likes of Elizabeth Taylor, Judy Garland, Paul Newman, and Natalie Wood. His home became a gathering place for the industry's elite, a safe haven where stars could let their guard down, away from the prying eyes of the press. But what few realized was that McDowall was also a passionate photographer, always with a camera in hand. He had a knack for capturing the unguarded moments, the laughter at a dinner party, the quiet reflection between takes, the stolen glances and whispered conversations that never made it into the tabloids. Over the years, he amassed a collection of images that told a very different story from the one Hollywood presented to the world. These were not the carefully staged publicity shots or red carpet poses, but raw, intimate glimpses into the lives of people who, for all their fame, were still achingly human. When McDowall passed away, his friends and family were left to sort through his belongings. What they found astonished even those who had known him best. In addition to the photographs, there were reels of home movies, private parties, vacations, and impromptu performances that had never been seen by the public. There were letters from stars at their most vulnerable, confiding in Roddy about their fears, their loves, and their regrets. There were scripts with handwritten notes in the margins, revealing the creative process behind some of the era's most iconic films. And there were journals, meticulously kept, in which McDowall recorded his impressions of the people and events that shaped his world. The archive was a revelation, not just for its scope, but for its honesty. Here was Elizabeth Taylor, not as the glamorous movie queen, but as a young woman struggling with heartbreak and self-doubt. Here was Judy Garland, radiant and fragile, singing at a private gathering, long after the cameras had stopped rolling. Here were Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward, laughing together in a moment of pure joy, far from the pressures of fame. The images and stories captured by McDowall offered a window into a world that was at once dazzling and deeply vulnerable. As word of the archive spread, historians, journalists, and fans clamored for a glimpse. What secrets did these photographs hold? What truths about Hollywood's most legendary figures would finally come to light? For many, the discovery of McDowall's hidden collection was like finding a lost diary of the 1960s. A chance to see the stars not as icons, but as real people, with all the complexity, contradiction, and humanity that entailed. But the archive also raised difficult questions. How much of what McDowall had collected was meant to be seen by the public? Did the stars who trusted him ever imagine that their private moments would one day be revealed to the world? And what responsibility did those who inherited the archive have to protect the privacy of people who, in many cases, were no longer alive to tell their own stories? As the process of cataloging and preserving the archive began, it became clear that Roddy McDowall's greatest legacy might not be his work on screen, but the secret history he had so carefully preserved. A history that, for the first time, would allow the world to see the true faces of 1960s Hollywood. The painstaking process of sorting through Roddy McDowall's hidden archive was like opening a time capsule from a world both familiar and utterly foreign. Each box, each envelope, each reel of film offered a new revelation, a new piece of the puzzle that was 1960s Hollywood. For the archivists and family members tasked with preserving McDowall's legacy, the experience was both exhilarating and daunting. They quickly realized that what they held in their hands was not just a collection of memorabilia, but a living, breathing record of an era defined by glamour, scandal, and seismic cultural change. One of the first discoveries to make headlines was a series of candid photographs from the infamous parties at McDowall's Laurel Canyon home. These gatherings were legendary in Hollywood circles, intimate affairs where the biggest stars could relax, laugh, and be themselves. The photos revealed a side of celebrity life rarely seen by the public. Marlon Brando playing the piano in a corner, Steve McQueen grilling burgers in the backyard, Natalie Wood and Robert Wagner slow dancing under the stars. There were no paparazzi, no press agents. Just friends enjoying each other's company in a world that demanded perfection by day and secrecy by night. But the archive was more than just a collection of party snapshots. It included deeply personal moments that spoke to the struggles and triumphs of the era's most iconic figures. There were letters from Montgomery Clift, written in a shaky hand, confiding in Roddy about his battles with addiction and the pressures of living up to Hollywood's impossible standards. There were notes from Bette Davis, sharp and witty, offering advice on everything from acting to love. There were even audio recordings, taped conversations between McDowall and his friends, discussing everything from politics to the changing landscape of the film industry. Perhaps most remarkable were the home movies, shot on APM and 16mm film. These reels captured the stars in their most unguarded moments. Paul Newman teaching his daughter to swim, Elizabeth Taylor baking cookies in Roddy's kitchen, Judy Garland singing lullabies to her children. These were not performances for the camera, but glimpses into the private lives of people who, for all their fame, longed for the same things as everyone else: love, acceptance, and a sense of belonging. As the archive was cataloged, it became clear that McDowall had been more than just a collector. He was a chronicler, a witness to history who understood the importance of preserving the truth behind the myth. His journals, written in neat, looping script, offered insight into the personalities and relationships that shaped Hollywood's golden age. He wrote of the fierce loyalty between friends, the rivalries that simmered beneath the surface, and the heartbreaks that were hidden from the public eye. He described the pressures faced by stars who were forced to hide their true selves, whether because of their sexuality, their politics, or their personal struggles. The archive also contained evidence of the darker side of Hollywood. There were references to secret affairs, studio cover-ups, and the lengths to which publicists and executives would go to protect their stars' images. McDowall's notes hinted at scandals that never made the headlines, stories of love triangles, betrayals, and quiet acts of rebellion against the rigid moral codes of the time. For historians, these documents were a goldmine, offering new perspectives on the stories that had shaped the industry and the culture at large. But for those who knew McDowall, the most striking aspect of the archive was the compassion and empathy that ran through every page, every photograph, every film reel. Roddy had been a confidant to the stars not because he sought gossip or leverage, but because he genuinely cared about the people behind the personas. He offered a safe space for friends to be vulnerable, to share their fears and dreams without fear of judgment or exposure. In preserving their stories, he honored their humanity. As news of the archive's contents spread, the debate over what to share with the public intensified. Some argued that the world deserved to see the real Hollywood, warts and all. Others insisted that the privacy of those who had trusted McDowall should be respected, even decades after their deaths. The archivists faced difficult choices, balancing the demands of history with the obligations of friendship and trust. What was certain, however, was that Roddy McDowall's hidden archive had changed the way we see the stars of 1960s Hollywood. No longer just icons on a screen, they emerged as complex, flawed, and deeply human. A revelation that would forever alter the story of an unforgettable era. As the cataloging of Roddy McDowall's hidden archive continued, the world's fascination with its contents only grew. Journalists, historians, and Hollywood insiders clamored for access, eager to uncover the secrets that had been locked away for decades. The archive became the subject of documentaries, magazine features, and even academic conferences, as experts debated its significance and the ethical dilemmas it posed. For the first time, the carefully constructed image of 1960s Hollywood was being challenged by a flood of new evidence. Evidence that revealed the joys, sorrows, and contradictions of the people who had shaped an era. One of the most talked about discoveries was a series of letters and photographs documenting the close friendship between Roddy McDowall and Elizabeth Taylor. Their bond was legendary in Hollywood, but the archive revealed just how deep their connection truly was. In letter after letter, Taylor confided in McDowall about her marriages, her struggles with addiction, and her fears about growing older in an industry obsessed with youth. The photographs captured moments of unguarded intimacy. Taylor laughing until she cried at one of Roddy's dinner parties, comforting him after a difficult day, or simply sitting together in companionable silence. These images and words painted a portrait of a woman who, despite her fame and beauty, was vulnerable, loyal, and fiercely protective of her friends. The archive also shed new light on the lives of stars, whose stories had long been shrouded in mystery. There were candid snapshots of Rock Hudson, relaxed and happy among friends, far from the pressures of maintaining a public persona. There were notes from Montgomery Clift, revealing his struggles with identity and acceptance in a world that demanded conformity. There were even rare recordings of Judy Garland, her voice raw with emotion as she sang for a small group of friends late into the night. These glimpses into the private lives of Hollywood's legends offered a powerful counterpoint to the sanitized narratives that had dominated the tabloids and fan magazines of the era. But the archive was not just a record of the stars' personal lives. It was also a chronicle of the social and political upheavals that defined the 1960s. McDowall's journals included detailed accounts of conversations about civil rights, the Vietnam War, and the changing role of women in society. He recorded the anxieties and hopes of his friends as they navigated a world in flux, struggling to reconcile their public images with their private convictions. The archive included photographs of stars attending protests, supporting charitable causes, and quietly defying the expectations of the studio system. These documents revealed a generation of artists who, for all their privilege, were deeply engaged with the issues of their time. As more of the archive was made public, the response from fans and scholars was overwhelming. For some, the revelations were exhilarating. A chance to see their idols as real people, grappling with the same challenges and insecurities as everyone else. For others, the exposure of long, buried secrets was unsettling, raising questions about privacy, consent, and the right to control one's own story. The debate played out in newspapers, on television, and across the internet as people wrestled with the implications of McDowall's legacy. For the families of the stars featured in the archive, the experience was bittersweet. Some welcomed the opportunity to see their loved ones remembered in a new light, their humanity and complexity finally acknowledged. Others worried about the impact of old scandals and private struggles being brought back into the public eye. The archivists worked closely with these families, seeking their input and respecting their wishes wherever possible. In many cases, the decision was made to withhold the most sensitive materials, preserving the dignity of those who had trusted McDowall with their secrets. Through it all, one thing became clear. Roddy McDowall's hidden archive was more than just a collection of photographs and letters. It was a testament to the power of friendship, the importance of empathy, and the enduring need to tell the truth about our lives. In revealing the secret lives of 1960s Hollywood, the McDowall had given the world a gift, a chance to see the stars not as distant icons, but as fellow travelers on the journey of life. As the world absorbed the revelations from Roddy McDowall's hidden archive, the impact rippled far beyond Hollywood. The archive became a touchstone for conversations about celebrity, privacy, and the nature of fame itself. For many, it was a wake-up call, a reminder that the glamorous images projected by the entertainment industry often masked a far more complicated reality. The stars of the 1960s, once seen as untouchable icons, were now revealed as deeply human, shaped by the same hopes, fears, and insecurities as everyone else. The archive's influence extended into the world of academia, where film historians and cultural critics pored over its contents, searching for new insights into the era. University courses were developed around the materials, exploring not just the lives of the stars, but the broader social and political context in which they lived. Students analyzed McDowall's photographs and journals, drawing connections between the personal struggles of Hollywood's elite and the larger currents of change sweeping through American society. The archive became a lens through which to view the 1960s, not just as a time of glamour and excess, but as a period of profound transformation and upheaval. For the entertainment industry, the archive was both a source of inspiration and a cautionary tale. Directors and screenwriters found in its pages a wealth of untold stories, characters, and moments that could be brought to life on screen. Biopics and documentaries were developed, drawing on the archive's rich trove of material to offer new perspectives on familiar figures. At the same time, the revelations about the pressures and pitfalls of fame prompted a new conversation about the responsibilities of studios, agents, and publicists. The industry began to reckon with its own history, acknowledging the ways in which it had failed to protect its stars and the toll that relentless scrutiny could take on even the strongest personalities. The archive also had a profound effect on the families of those featured within its pages. For some, it was a chance to reconnect with lost loved ones, to see them as they truly were, unfiltered, vulnerable, and real. Children and grandchildren discovered sides of their parents and grandparents that had been hidden from public view, finding comfort in the knowledge that their struggles and triumphs were part of a larger human story. For others, the exposure of long, buried secrets was painful, reopening old wounds and forcing difficult conversations about the past. The archivists worked with sensitivity and care, striving to balance the demands of history with the need for compassion and respect. As the debate over what to share and what to withhold continued, the archive's stewards made a commitment to transparency and ethical responsibility. They established guidelines for the release of materials, consulting with families, legal experts, and historians to ensure that the privacy and dignity of those involved were protected. Public exhibitions were curated with care, focusing on the humanity and complexity of the stars rather than sensationalizing their struggles. The goal was not to exploit the archive's secrets, but to honor the trust that Roddy McDowall had built with his friends, and to share their stories in a way that was truthful, respectful, and meaningful. The public response to the archive's exhibitions was overwhelming. Crowds flocked to museums and galleries to see the photographs, letters, and home movies that had been hidden for so long. Visitors were moved by the intimacy of the images, the raw emotion captured in a glance, a touch, a smile. Many left with a new appreciation for the people behind the personas, and for the power of art to reveal the truth of our lives. In the end, Roddy McDowall's hidden archive did more than just reveal the secret lives of 1960s Hollywood. It changed the way we think about fame, friendship, and the stories we tell about ourselves. It reminded us that even the brightest stars are, at their core, human beings, shaped by the same joys and sorrows as the rest of us. And it offered a powerful lesson about the importance of empathy, understanding, and the courage to look beyond the surface in search of the truth. As the years passed, the influence of Roddy McDowall's hidden archive only deepened. What began as a private collection, tucked away in closets and cabinets, had become a cultural phenomenon, reshaping the way the world remembered the stars of 1960s Hollywood. The archive's revelations continued to spark debate, inspire art, and challenge long-held assumptions about the nature of celebrity and the cost of fame. For many, the most powerful aspect of the archive was its ability to humanize legends. The photographs and letters revealed not just the triumphs, but the struggles, the loneliness of stardom, the pain of heartbreak, the quiet moments of doubt that even the most celebrated actors could not escape. Fans who had idolized these figures for decades found themselves relating to their vulnerabilities, seeing in their stories echoes of their own lives. The archive became a bridge between generations, connecting those who had lived through the 1960s with younger audiences eager to understand the era's enduring allure. The impact of the archive was felt in Hollywood itself. Actors, directors, and producers began to speak more openly about the pressures of the industry, the importance of mental health, and the need for support systems that extended beyond the spotlight. The stories uncovered in McDowall's collection served as cautionary tales, reminders that fame could be as isolating as it was intoxicating. Industry veterans shared their own memories of Roddy, recalling his kindness, his discretion, and his unwavering loyalty to his friends. For many, he became a symbol of what Hollywood could be at its best, a place of creativity, camaraderie, and genuine connection. The archive also inspired a new wave of creative projects. Filmmakers drew on its contents to craft more nuanced portrayals of classic stars, moving beyond the clichés and stereotypes that had long dominated biopics and documentaries. Writers found inspiration in the letters and journals, weaving real, life stories into novels, plays, and screenplays. Visual artists created exhibitions that explored the themes of identity, privacy, and the passage of time, using McDowall's photographs as a starting point for their own explorations of fame and memory. For the families of those featured in the archive, the experience was often bittersweet. Some found healing in the process, grateful for the chance to see their loved ones remembered with honesty and compassion. Others struggled with the renewed attention, the reopening of old wounds, and the challenge of reconciling public perception with private reality. The archivists continued to work closely with these families, offering support and guidance as they navigated the complexities of legacy and remembrance. The archive's stewards also faced ongoing ethical questions. As new materials were discovered and catalogued, they grappled with the responsibility of deciding what to share and what to keep private. They consulted with historians, legal experts, and the families themselves, striving to honor both the truth of the past and the dignity of those involved. The process was slow and sometimes contentious, but it was guided by a commitment to transparency, respect, and the belief that history, when told with care, could be a force for understanding and healing. Meanwhile, the public's fascination with the archive showed no signs of waning. Special exhibitions continued to draw crowds, and new books and documentaries brought McDowall's story to audiences around the world. Online communities sprang up, dedicated to sharing memories, discussing revelations, and celebrating the lives of the stars whose secrets had finally come to light. The archive became a living, evolving testament to the enduring power of storytelling, and to the man who had quietly preserved a hidden history for future generations. As the world continued to change, the lessons of Roddy McDowall's archive remained as relevant as ever. In an age of social media and instant celebrity, the need for empathy, understanding, and honest storytelling had never been greater. The archive stood as a reminder that behind every headline, every photograph, and every legend, there is a real person, with hopes, fears, and dreams all their own. As the legacy of Roddy McDowall's hidden archive entered the modern era, its influence continued to ripple through Hollywood and beyond. The archive had become more than just a collection of artifacts. It was a living testament to the complexity of fame, the fragility of privacy, and the enduring power of friendship. For those who had the privilege of exploring its depths, the experience was transformative, offering a rare glimpse into the secret lives of the stars who had shaped an entire generation. The final curation of the archive was a labor of love, involving not just historians and archivists, but also artists, filmmakers, and the families of those whose lives were captured in its pages. Together, they worked to ensure that the stories told were honest, respectful, and true to the spirit of the people who had trusted Roddy with their secrets. The result was a series of exhibitions, documentaries, and publications that brought the hidden world of 1960s Hollywood to life for new audiences, while honoring the privacy and dignity of those who had lived it. One of the most moving aspects of the archive's public unveiling was the way it brought people together. Fans, scholars, and industry insiders gathered at museums and film festivals, sharing memories, insights, and reflections on the era. For many, it was a chance to reconnect with the past, to see their favorite stars in a new light, and to appreciate the humanity that lay beneath the glamour. The archive became a catalyst for conversation, prompting discussions about the nature of celebrity, the challenges of living in the public eye, and the importance of preserving history with care and compassion. The impact of the archive was also felt in the way it changed the narrative around some of Hollywood's most enduring legends. Stars who had once been reduced to caricatures or tabloid headlines were now seen as complex, multifaceted individuals shaped by their experiences, relationships, and personal struggles. The archive offered a more nuanced understanding of figures like Elizabeth Taylor, Judy Garland, Rock Hudson, and Montgomery Clift, reminding the world that their greatness was not just a product of talent or beauty, but of resilience, vulnerability, and the courage to be themselves in a world that often demanded otherwise. For the families of those featured in the archive, the process of sharing their loved ones' stories was both challenging and rewarding. Many found comfort in the knowledge that their parents, grandparents, or friends were being remembered with honesty and empathy. Others struggled with the renewed attention, but ultimately recognized the value of preserving these stories for future generations. The archive became a bridge between past and present, connecting the dreams and struggles of one era with the hopes and aspirations of another. Roddy McDowall's own legacy was forever changed by the discovery of his archive. Once known primarily as a talented actor and photographer, he was now celebrated as a guardian of Hollywood's hidden history, a man whose compassion, curiosity, and sense of responsibility had preserved a world that might otherwise have been lost to time. His story inspired a new generation of artists, historians, and storytellers to look beyond the surface, to seek out the untold stories, and to honor the humanity at the heart of every legend. As the years went on, the lessons of the archive remained as relevant as ever. In an age of instant fame and fleeting attention, the need for empathy, understanding, and honest storytelling had only grown. The archive stood as a reminder that the true measure of a life is not found in headlines or accolades, but in the relationships we build, the stories we share, and the kindness we show to others. In the end, Roddy McDowall's hidden archive did more than reveal the secret lives of 1960s Hollywood. It changed the way we remember, the way we tell stories, and the way we see ourselves. It reminded us that behind every legend is a person, behind every photograph a story, and behind every secret a truth waiting to be discovered. And as new generations continue to explore the archive's treasures, the legacy of Roddy McDowall, and the stars he so lovingly preserved, will live on, inspiring us all to look deeper, love harder, and cherish the stories that make us human.